Hello, my name's Liz, and in this lesson I'd like to look at vocabulary for IELTS. And in particular, we're going to look at using synonyms safely for writing. Now, in writing task 1 and writing task 2, it is important to show the examiner that you can paraphrase, and that means using synonyms. But not all synonyms can be used in the same situation, even if they have the same meaning. And that means many students are actually increasing the number of mistakes they make, and that will reduce your band score. So this is a very important aspect of writing that you need to pay attention to. It also applies to speaking. So we're going to look at 3 examples to help you raise awareness of how careful you need to be using synonyms. So the first one for writing task 1 is consume, so the verb consume, and that is paraphrased as use. The next one is people, that's for writing task 2. Many essays are about people, and students often like to paraphrase that with the word humans. And then the last one is teenagers and how to paraphrase that. So we're going to look not just at the paraphrases, but the problems with using these synonyms. So let's start with the first one. Here we have an example for writing task 1. If you have a graph that shows the amount of fuel consumed, you can paraphrase that and use the synonym used, the amount of fuel used. And it works perfectly in that situation. So we're looking at collocations, which is noun and verb. The noun fuel, or even energy, can be consumed, so the verb can be used with that noun, and also used can be used with that noun. But what happens when we change the noun? So here we've got a graph, for example, which shows the amount of meat consumed, so a food. It could possibly be a drink. Now, in this situation, it's different, because the verb use with food doesn't work. So although in the dictionary it tells you it's a synonym, it's a different word. Used is a different verb. It cannot be used in the same way as consumed. So here, this is a problem. You would have a big problem with vocabulary if you decided to use this synonym in this context, because this is actually referring to eating meat, not to using meat. So IELTS really is testing your understanding of synonyms. So let's have a look at what that sentence should have been paraphrased as. And now we have the right synonym, which is eaten. So the amount of meat consumed should be written and paraphrased as the amount of meat eaten. So what we can see already is that you need to understand a lot more about collocations, which is exactly which situation a verb can be used. So what noun and what verb go together. So that's one example for task 1. Now let's have a look at the example of people for task 2. Writing task 2. So here we've got 2 sentences, and in both sentences we've paraphrased the word people for human. So here and here. Now, of course, we know people are humans, humans are people. Of course it's a synonym, but can they be used in the same way? So let's have a look at the first sentence. Now, we need to look at the topic. So what is this talking about? Human activities such as deforestation and fossil fuel consumption have led to serious environmental problems. So this is all about the environment. And this is about our ecosystem. Now, this system of our ecology involves humans, animals, trees, plants, insects, fish, all types of living organisms that exist in the world. So that means it is possible to talk about humans. We use the word human when we're trying to separate, to differentiate between people and animals. So when we're talking about species, we use the word humans. So in this situation, human activities, because we're not talking about the impact that animals have on the environment, we're talking about human activities and the impact that those activities have. So in this situation, it is absolutely fine to write about humans. But now we move to a different topic, and we still use the same paraphrase. Due to traffic congestion, humans should make an effort to use more public transport in urban areas. So this is about city life, and it is about public transportation. Now, in this situation, are we talking about different species? Is it possible that the reader might get confused between animals and humans? And of course, the answer is no. So when we talk about people using public transport, we're not talking about humans using public transport, because we don't need to differentiate between humans and animals. Animals are not involved in this topic at all. So, for this reason, this is completely wrong. And we cannot use the synonym of humans instead of people when we're talking about transportation in city areas. And that applies to a lot of topics in IELTS Writing Task 2. So it means that you have to be very careful when you paraphrase. So in this situation, we need to use the word people. And of course, many students will say, but what other paraphrase can we use for the word people? Well, you don't. It is quite normal in IELTS Writing Task 2 that there are words that will be repeated. So when the examiner is looking at paraphrasing, the examiner is not looking to see if a student has paraphrased every single word. The examiner is looking to see whether you understand paraphrasing. And that means to know when you can paraphrase successfully and when you can't. And in this situation, you can't, and you need to use the word people. So paraphrasing is not as simple as you imagine. You need to show the examiner an understanding of when to use it. Now let's have a look at one more example for Writing Task 2. And now we take a look at teenagers. So we've got two paraphrases here for that word. We've got teenager, adolescent, and youth. And of course, yes, they have the same meaning. But as I'm sure you understand now, it's not just about meaning, it's about how the word can be used. So we've got a sentence, the start of a sentence. The growth in teenage crime. This could be written as the growth in adolescent crime. But it cannot be written as the growth in youth crime. This is completely wrong. These are fine. So what can we do? We can change the structure of the sentence so that we can use that word. And we can say the number of youths committing crime has grown. And we can also say the number of adolescents or the number of teenagers committing crime has grown. So you can see in some situations, depending on the grammar, we can use the synonym. Other times we have to actually alter the sentence entirely. So I hope from this lesson that you understand that to learn synonyms is not just about learning their meaning. It's about learning when you can use them and when you can't use them, in what situations and for what topics. It's about learning collocations, which nouns match which verbs. And it's also about grammar and knowing whether you need to change the sentence structure in order to use the word accurately. So there's actually quite a lot involved in the skill of paraphrasing. So I hope that now what you will do is you will go back to some of the essays or writing task 1 that you've written and take a look at your paraphrases and check carefully. How can you check? Well, this is where dictionaries are important. It is not a case of having a dictionary that translates from English to your language, because that's only translating meaning. And as you know now, meaning is not the most important thing. So what you need to do is get an English dictionary, which gives you the meaning, and then example sentences so that you can see how to use it correctly. Well, that's all for this lesson. I'll see you again in another IELTS lesson.